You're listening to Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, your go-to gal for all things money. As the Sassy Wealth Queen and the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach, I'm here to take you on a thrilling ride from the financial chaos to sassy and sexy money. Hello, my sassy friend. Welcome back to another episode of Cash and Sass. I'm Lisa Marie, the Sassy Wealth Queen, the brains behind the Sassy Wealth Coach and this podcast, Cash and Sass. And today with me is one of my favorite people, Dr. Lee Cordell. I have been waiting for this one for a while for us to record. And Dr. Lee started her institute after retiring from a decade-long career as an acute care nurse practitioner and a graduate-level professor. She's devoted to helping humans understand their past so they can create happier, healthier futures. She integrates her personal stories of childhood abuse, depression, and anxiety with her 20 years of professional experience in order to bring accessible, practical trauma education to all who desire to learn more. On a personal note, I know her because she is one of my coaches, and I've joined her TRIPS program, which is to become more trauma-informed. And I just love you because of what you stand for and what you do. And so I just want to dive into that, really, because I joined it for the record because I started noticing that some of my clients were having what I thought would be more than anxious things around money, like, maybe this and so as I started following you and you were talking about triggers and things that could cause someone to go into that flight freeze mode, and I'm like, and so the whole purpose of me joining to get certified was so that I could help be able to notice those things even better and be able to, one, not trigger my clients unintentionally, right? Because we don't want to do that. And two, be able to know, okay, we may need to address this differently or go a different way so that they can move through it. And in the process, I got a whole lot more than that, than what I anticipated, because there was also deeper learning for me as well, and past trauma and work through for me that also helped me with my money mindset even more. So I want to go into that because most people are going to be, how is there money trauma, or how does trauma affect us, with our money management and our money mindset, and even embodying the fact that we can make money and create that wealth that we want to create.
Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to be having this conversation with you. I'm glad you love me because ditto. That's really convenient because I love you too. And it's this topic that's like, we talk about money mindset so much that I think people think that it's like, sometimes it's deeper than it is, and it's not as deep as we think it is, if that makes sense. So, personally, if you looked at things superficially, like, I didn't have a lot of money trauma growing up. So I grew up in a home. We moved to a particularly wealthy neighborhood for this school system when I was 9, something like that, second grade. And, never was really made to feel like wrong for not having as much money as the other kids. My parents would have described us as like comfortable, and which I now know is a term for that people in like the higher socioeconomic statuses use, right? But I was seeing kids around me that literally lived in mansions, that were like driving new cars to school, Range Rovers and Jeeps and all of those things. And like, we had all of our needs met. We were comfortable. And so I had this very clear understanding of like, it could be so much worse. And also like, I never felt like I was really going without when I was younger. And so I share that because when I got to college and started managing my own money, like understanding how to do things, I was really not good at it. And like objectively, I didn't know what I was doing. And a lot of my money stories started popping up And I didn't recognize it. And it took me until I'm 37 now. It took me, almost like 15 years to go, wait a second. On the surface, it didn't look like there was any past painful experiences around money or any negative beliefs or limiting beliefs around money. I don't think I have trauma here to going like, oh, actually, there's a lot here. And if I don't work through this, we have the saying like money's a magnifier. If I don't work through this as I'm growing my business, as I'm bringing on team, as I'm the sole income for 5 humans in our home, like this is going to be a problem. And so it goes so much deeper than mindset. And the trauma piece is really like it can be small. It can be something where you're 5 years old and you're watching your parents argue about a bill being paid, or you hear your family consistently like downplaying how much money they make or saying, "Oh, we don't talk about money. We can't afford that for you. You have really expensive tastes." One of the things that I heard a lot when I was a kid was money burns a hole in your pocket.
That that
Right.
that's a negative thing. That is a negative money story,
Right.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
you wouldn't think at the time it is. You would think it was uh like funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not. I
It's
mean,
not. Yeah, it was actually, there was a lot around that because I didn't have any mindset issues or limiting beliefs around making money, but I did have a lot around how I spent it and how I did not save it. And so, as an entrepreneur, like, if you're like, "Lee, I need you to make 10 grand by tomorrow." Okay. Like, I can
you
figure
can
that
go and
out
make it
usually. I mean,
right.
I don't necessarily wanna do the things that I would need to do it, but, like, it depends on what level of integrity we're going for, but if you said, "Lee, you've gotta make money by 10K by tomorrow," there are so many people who would just shut down at that because of their own money beliefs and go, "I can't do that." Me, I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I could do that." If you're like, "Lee, I need you to save $100,000 this year," that's where I'm currently working, right? "Lee, I need you to keep this big, like, pile of money that you don't touch for later." That's where my work is and where I've really been deepening into things. And so, you know, these really small things can have really big impact as we get older, and you cannot see them, and you don't even necessarily recognize them as trauma. You're like, "Oh, that was funny." And then there can also be really serious things that happen that we downplay and we're like, "Well, that shouldn't be as big of a deal as it was." And for me, learning to not invalidate either the little things or the big things
The
and
big
going,
things.
"Okay, you know what? If it's impacting how I'm showing up with money, it matters."
Right. And one thing I think it's really important for the listeners to understand too is what I may consider as a trauma event and was a trauma event to me may not have actually been a trauma. Like if same thing would have
Sure.
happened to them, may not have actually been a trauma event to them. So that's important. And the reason why I think that's important is because of what you said. Don't downplay the events. Don't think, oh, well, was that a trauma? No, nobody else will consider that trauma. It doesn't matter if anyone else considers it a trauma. How did it affect you? How did it, um, how deep did it go of affecting you? Did it cause certain things, right? And I think that's really important because I had one of the first times I started noticing it, and that was the reason I think that actually led me to join trips because I almost joined it the first round. And then I decided against it because I wasn't sure. And I kept following you. And then I had a retreat. And when one of the ladies shared, like I have them go into their money story, like where it originated, like
Mhm.
what they remember, like what's their first memory. And as they were going into it, one of the first memories that she was having, I was like, huh.
Mhm.
And we started, going into it and she started talking and we were able to work through it. And I actually told her later that I really wanted her to actually talk to someone who could actually help her through that, because even though I wasn't trauma certified, informed certified, and I said that, I said, and just from me following, my gut is telling me this is just more than an anxious thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you work through this, you'll actually be able to move forward and change your money story even more, and be able to not only create, because she could create the wealth, like you're talking about, she could create it. It was actually how she managed it and how she retained it. Like, being strategic on the spending part and knowing where it was going. That's what got her. And it was after that retreat when you started doing your emails or whatever about the second round. And I was like, and that's when I reached out to you, because I was like, okay, the gut was just like, you're noticing it. There's that. And you'll be able to help more women be able to see and say, okay, we can work through this, and this is how we can do it.
Yeah.
And if they do need deeper work past me, I can refer them to someone so they can, work through that. And it's just important because, in that process, I even found out that, I remember the conversation, I've already worked through all this. And you went, yes, but now we're going on a deeper level. And then I roll my eyes. And she loves me rolling my eyes, y'all, because she just says she does. I don't know why, but she just says she does. She laughs because when she says something that I guess I know is true and I know she's going to say, I roll my eyes. Yeah. So
I do love your eye rolls.
But I think it's just important that we recognize that sometimes it can be small thing, or it could be several small things.
Mm-hmm.
And it leads into that. And so how have you noticed if affecting different people's and yours, like your mindset or your embodiment with money?
Yeah. So gosh, like it comes in so many different places, both at the macro level and at the very granular level. And it also comes into places like I've had conversations with people where when we really drop in on our figuring out where a belief comes from, or like where past painful experience has occurred, it's not even theirs. It's like generational, it's ancestral, it's collective. Like it's a feeling or an experience that they're having in their body, and it's in response to something that has happened to someone else. And so, I really like to make that distinction for people because, I'm multiracial. We have indigenous and Black and white, and the 23andMe is really fun in our family. And I'm a woman, and so like there's a lot of ancestral stuff that's happened, and both from like a nature perspective, that gets passed down in DNA. It's kind of a deep conversation, but like there's evidence that shows that uh our genetics can get turned on and turned off. Like different genes in our body can get turned off and turned on based off of experiences that happen to us. And then that can get passed on to our descendants. And then also there's the nurture piece of, okay, if I have a mom who's experienced significant financial hardship, if I have a grandmother that's experienced significant financial hardship, this is something that is wild to think about. My grandmother, when she had my mother, my mom had her eggs, right? Like she already had her eggs. And so I was like directly affected by things that happened to my grandmother from that perspective. And so both this, I like to speak to that because I see a lot of people carrying trauma that affects them from their lineage that's come before, that's not even really applicable to them anymore. And that can be the most frustrating form of trauma because you're like, I don't even believe this. Like, I don't even feel this way. Why is this affecting how I'm showing up? Um, you know, my family, there was a thing of humility. And so it's okay, you can't let people know how much money you're making. You can't show how good you are at things. You can't talk about the fact that you're about to pass seven figures in sales. You can't talk about all of these things because that's harmful, that's dangerous. And so we don't talk about money. We don't talk about Bruno, right? We don't talk about money and we don't let other people know how much money we have because that allows that puts us in a precarious position. People will want to hurt us more. I don't believe that personally. And the ancestral pressure around that is strong. Um, so that's just one piece. But the other thing I see a lot of times is again, people have these little things that they don't know are there, and they'll be really specific. So here's an example that I heard from someone. I have a friend who is a realtor, and she has clients that are unwilling to buy once the interest rate gets to a specific number. And it doesn't have to do with the fact like they'll invest if the interest rate is at 10%, but they won't invest if the interest rate is at 8%. And the reason they won't invest when the interest rate is at 8% is because the last house that they had that went through bankruptcy, the interest rate on the loan was 8%. So having to see that 8 every month on the statements, or having to know that this house was bought at in the exact same rate that their former house that they lost, and there's some trauma they haven't processed around, this client will wait to purchase a property till the interest rate gets higher. And you and I would look at that from the outside perspective if we're not trauma informed, if we don't understand how trauma affects, and go, what are you doing? Right? Like, why are you making that decision? That doesn't make sense financially. I have worked with so many business owners that will do things and you're like, and they're weird. If we're just looking at it without this trauma lens, you're like, why did you hit a 50K month and then back down to a 7K month and then get stuck there? Like, why did that happen? Well, there's something around how fast they grew, or how, their nervous system gets dysregulated around what happens. And then it leads to a contraction. And if we just think that's a mindset issue, like this person isn't thinking clearly about it, or this person's just not trying hard enough, and we don't approach it as, hey, did something happen when you were younger that when you got to this point, your nervous system, like the threat response got kicked on, and now you are in a state of dysregulation and self-protection that looks like sabotage, and in reality, it's your nervous system going, that's not safe.
Right. And see, you bring up and that's exactly what you did with me. Damn it. Because I'm willing to talk about this because I know it's that important. When I say we're kicking money taboo to the curb, I mean it. And when I say nothing is too much to be on the table, I mean it. And so I'm so glad we're having this conversation. When I came to you for one-on-one, that was when some things happened in my business. And I started thinking, okay, has my money mindset gone to shit? Like all the work I've done. I started, it wasn't until we talked that when you asked the question, that I was able to connect the things that had happened in those 5 months to where I was fighting for my livelihood, connected it to something that happened, by the way, was not, in some ways it was connected to money, and in some ways it wasn't.
Yeah.
Livelihood connected to what had happened to me when I was younger, where I felt like I was fighting for my livelihood. And, having a parent who is addicted to drugs, okay, and
not having certain bills paid, I didn't really connect that to the contraction I was having when I start, and until you invited and asked if you could ask a question, and I rolled my eyes every time she does that too, by the way. But when you did that, all of a sudden it clicked.
Mhm.
And that's when we realized we had to work on that deeper level of, you know what, it's okay. The nervous system needs to know it's okay, because I had reached a certain level in my income, my revenue, and I was about to grow. And then when something came, when the two things happened, all of a sudden I felt my livelihood being attacked, and I felt like I was fighting for my life. That caused even more contraction, and I'm just more of the money mindset, really. I mean, it was all, I mean, you know, I was like a whirlwind. It was like,
Yeah.
I tell people often I was visible, and at the same time I wasn't. It's like
Yeah.
I was there, but I wasn't really being visible. And and here's the other thing. The reason why people didn't know is because I had tools to go to. I had Dr. Lee. I had my other coach. I had my regular tools, and I utilized them. And then when I was realizing, okay, these tools aren't necessarily working, that was when I reached out to Dr. Lee. And so I had Dr. Lee, and we were able to do that work and be able to get my nervous system regulated. And so a lot of times you're not going to realize that one has something to do with the other when it actually does.
Yeah. First of all, it was such an honor to support you through that, because and I think one of the most fascinating parts of doing this work, and why I love working with entrepreneurs, is because we always think it's about the business. We always think it's about the work. And so one of the most fascinating parts is when we drop in like below the mindset, and we actually have a conversation with your body. We have a conversation with your inner child. Like we're like, and if you've never heard anyone talk like this before, it's cool. I hadn't heard anybody talk like this before several years ago before I started doing it. But so many of us, we practice mindset and we are disconnected from our bodies and our emotions and our past painful experiences. And our body does that to protect us. It's like, look, if you remember how this feels, you're going to be on the floor, right? Or at this moment that this thing is happening to you, you don't have the tools to deal with this. You don't know how to handle this threat. So we're going to forget that this ever happened, or we're going to like minimize it, shove it down, send it away. I cannot tell you how many times I will be in a session like I was with you with an entrepreneur, a business owner, and the thing that their body shows them as this is why this thing now is a problem is always surprising. People are like, "Wait."
It was to me. I was not a very happy person that day. You were like, "Do you want to cuss me right now?" Actually, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't, and that's it. I just find it so, like the scientist in me is like, this is just so amazing, because they can be, like I said, they can be very little things. In your case, it was a really serious thing. Um, and we don't know. We don't know until we actually reconnect it all and have the opportunity for you to remember, to recover what what the experience was. And um it's honestly why I love the work that you do, and why I'm so grateful that you're having conversations like this, and also that you're bringing it into your work, because this is actually how I define mindset, because I look at my mind as my nervous, like my mind is made up of my brain and my gut and my heart and my infinite intelligence, and like it's bigger than my brain. But a lot of people view mindset as
The way
brain
we just
work,
think,
how
right?
you think,
Right.
and it's not. It is you we forget we're mammals, and it's
It
so attached to
our
how you
brain is
feel.
right. Our brain is one piece, but it's
Yeah.
not the whole piece to the mindset.
No.
And our nervous system is a lot of that. And sometimes our nervous system is trying to protect us, And like we said, we have to remind our nervous system that it's okay. And in that process, going deeper, what came out was I had stopped trusting my gut
Mhm.
and because of certain events, and I just stopped listening to it completely again. And when it came back I started listening to my heart, and we know from me the way I am, I need to listen to my gut.
Yeah.
My gut does not steer me wrong. And my nervous system was letting me know there was some deeper work that needed to be done in order for me to go to the next level in my business. And yet it didn't technically have anything to do with me being an entrepreneur.
No.
Yes, there were some things that happened because I had something happen personal. Money was stolen. A friend betrayed huge trust. And then I had business related stuff happen. And it was literally back to back.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize they were connected until I started talking to Dr. Lee, and I was like, well, they might be. And she started asking questions, and I was like, you're telling me this is all connected, aren't you?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, do you think it's now connected? And I'm like, well, I didn't think it was, but, and now. We have to realize that our mindset is more, like you said, more than just our brain. It's all of it. And sometimes in order for us to change our relationship with money, in order for us to not just create the wealth, but retain it and expand it and be the type of entrepreneur we want to be, we have to do that deeper work.
Yeah. Well, it's because I hear people say they want to have a relationship with money. And I'm like, okay, well, it's just like any other relationship. And money is one of the most intimate relationships you're going to have in today's late capitalistic society because it's involved in everything. Like, it's going to affect every piece of your life. So it's a very intimate relationship. And so, like, what I noticed is that working on my relationship with myself and being like, everything that I have dissociated and disconnected from, every piece and part of me that I have shamed, exiled, like pretended doesn't exist, every place I've really invalidated or denied myself, or other people have invalidated and denied me, and I've gone, yeah, that's cool. Sometimes because I was 4 and I didn't know any better, like I couldn't, I had no resources. Sometimes when I was older, because that was the easier thing to do in the moment. Doing the work, going on a journey of like, okay, I'm going to pull every piece and part back in and get into relationship with myself so that I am my own best friend.
That's hard though.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when money with me started going, hey, okay, you want to start approaching your relationship with yourself as a relationship and not as a quid pro quo transactional strings attached experience. You want to start doing that with other people, with your husband, with your parents, with your kids. Money needs that too. You got to stop looking at money as a transactional relationship and start looking at it as a intimate, connected relationship that is not full of strings. And a lot of us in today's society, and especially in business, are taught, yeah, be relational with your money, especially women, be relational with your clients and your money. And in reality, it's lipstick on a pig. We are being transactional. We're going, oh, money,
Because
I love you so
that's
much.
because society. That's
Yeah.
because that's how society.
Yeah. We go,
They're
oh,
telling us to be relational, but what we're seeing and what is it that we say when we're as we're adults that about our kids? Our kids learn more from what they see
mhm,
than what we
you
tell
say,
them.
yeah. Yeah.
and people are like, no, they don't. Oh, yes, they do. I'm learning. Let me just
Yeah.
tell you, I'm living proof. Okay. My two girls, some of the stuff they remember, it's what they saw, not what I said.
Right.
And because its actions speak louder than words. And if you're being transactional, then you're not really having a relationship, right?
Right.
If you're looking at money as transactional or anything as transactional, you're not. And that was something else that came up when, remember, I messaged you in Slack and I said, oh crap.
Yeah.
Oh crap, oh crap, oh crap. And I was
Yeah.
mad. Y'all, it took everything I had not to beat myself up, which, by the way, I am telling you now, forgive yourself for any of it.
Mm-hmm.
Work on forgiving yourself. No beating yourself up on any of this because, one, as Dr. Lee has told me countless times, the decisions you made before is based off of the information you had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't beat yourself up. You look at it and say, okay, how did it affect me? Is that how I want to do it now? And going deeper. And if there's work that needs to be done, then do the work. Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing is I tell people all the time is you're shifting, especially if it's deeper, it's not going to change overnight. I'm 7 years in, and in the last 5 months, I found out I had to go much deeper than because then I point blank looked at her and said, I've already worked on all of this. And my word was shit. I had already worked on all of it, changed it. And she goes, and we're going to go deeper. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you mean there's layers to all of this? And she went, yes. That was a really big eye roll I did, I promise. And recognizing it and being able to make those changes is huge.
Yeah.
Because when it all of a sudden clicked and I messaged you in Slack and I said, OMG, I have been doing this from almost a scarcity mindset of transactional, needing money,
Mm-hmm.
wanting money, saying I love money and I love working with people, but I wasn't doing it from a relationship. I was doing it from that scarcity mindset of being transactional.
Yep.
And I was like, and what was the phrase that you said? Get back. What was it that someone said you get back in the car?
Oh yeah. Get back in the car. Like, so you speaking about like being mean to yourself, right? Noticing. So this is something I see a lot. And this also has to do with societal conditioning and past painful experiences. Were you taught that when you made a mistake, you should self-flagellate? Right? And meaning, were you taught that when you made a mistake, you should shame yourself and regulate yourself and restrict yourself and be mean to yourself with the understanding that that will prevent you from making the mistake again? Which, by the way, if anybody practices that, if
It
that
doesn't
worked,
work.
it would have worked by now. I don't know about you. Doesn't work for me. Never has. So, it's this idea of like you're on your way to somewhere that you want to go and you recognize that, oh shoot, I took a detour. Oh shoot, I didn't plot this right. I ran out of gas. I made a mistake. And sometimes you didn't even make a mistake. Like you had no idea what was going to happen. And so you made the best decision you could. It's not a mistake. It was just a learning experience. And what we do sometimes is when we realize that we're like, out in nowhere, when we're trying to be going to somewhere, is we get out of the car and we start throwing a temper tantrum. And we just sit there like on the hood of the car and we're like, oh my gosh, like I always do this, or like I never get to where I want to go, or sometimes we blame other people. We'll be like, oh, if my parents had just taught me this, or like if my old mentor hadn't like screwed me over this way, and yet you're still sitting on the hood of the car. And it's like, can you let yourself get back in the car and get back on the road to where you want to somewhere? Right?
Yeah, because what you said was that, and I think that was your mentor that told you, have your temper tantrum,
Yeah.
feel the emotions,
Yeah.
and then And don't stay there. Get back in the car and get back on the road where you wanted to go, because now you've recognized you were off track. And so what I messaged you in Slack was, I'm getting back in the car and I'm going back in the direction I wanted to go in, doing it from a place I wanted to do, because I was way off track. And I didn't beat myself up, which 6 months or even a year ago, I guarantee you I would, because I was beating myself up when you and I met, and we're talking. I was blaming other people, and I was beating myself up.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think I felt so excited for you in that moment, because I was like, that's the shift. The shift is, instead of putting the energy into the self-flagellation and into the like shoulda, woulda, coulda, blame, shame game. No, you know what? Yeah, I'm having feelings around this. I'm remembering, I'm having some grief thinking about how many times I've had to get back in the car. And also, okay, I've felt them. I can still feel them. I can still feel them while I drive. Right?
Just get back in the car.
Like, and yeah, I learned, I was in a course with Melanie and Lair. She was talking about this, and I loved it, because I always talk about, look, my shame and my flaws and my inner 6-year-old who is just really wants to take a nap or like, have a cookie or whatever, like they get to be with me on the ride. Like they can sit in the front seat. They can inform, like give me information around what they need and how they'd like me to do things. And I get to see them and witness them and presence them and let them know that they belong, and they get to sit in the car with me, and they're not driving.
And they don't get to drive.
They don't get to drive. They can hold the map, they can, right? Like they can choose the car snacks. They can put music on the radio. They can do all of those things. And it's not that I say, oh, I'm holding you hostage and you're coming with me, and like, you don't get to have a say in anything. No, sometimes they have really valuable things to tell me, and I'm still the one driving, and I get to own that. That's a privilege, my sister and I have been having this conversation around gratitude a lot. And I think that gratitude is something that sometimes we use to bypass our trauma, because we go, oh, well, at least it wasn't this bad. Or like, but I really get to be thankful for this. Like, I still get to, like, no, we feel the feelings. We have the temper tantrum. We experience the grief and the confusion and the whatever's coming up. We're not shoving that down anymore. If a client backs out,
and I think that's also a big thing too, because, and we don't realize how it affects our money, is the fact that even if it was subconsciously, a lot of us, especially women, a lot of us were taught that we weren't supposed to feel our feelings.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to show our feelings.
Yeah.
So when we're told we're not supposed to show our feelings, we instead pushed it down, right? And instead of realizing or learning how to process those emotions, work through them, and then get back in the car and keep going, right? We were just learned, you push it down, you don't show it, and you just you just push through, and you're never. So all it does is keep piling up.
Yeah.
And it was Melanie that told you about getting in the car, because I remember now you said that you were in the thing, and she looked at you and said, "Can you get back in the car?"
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. And when all of a sudden I realized I was doing it from a transactional instead of this relationship of with my passion and my mission, and it was more on the transactional side, which was leading to that scarcity, coming from that scarcity because of things. I was like, oh, wait a damn minute. No. And that's why I immediately messaged you in Slack and went, light bulb moment, OMG, no. And I just think it's really important that people realize that sometimes there's things involved there that you may not think is part of it, which actually really is.
Can I say one last thing around that?
Please.
I think the the reason I got so excited when you said that is because, as you said, we had identified that your gut was really like offline. It wasn't even talking to you anymore.
Yeah.
Because it was like, she's not going to listen. So I'm not going to say anything. And so bringing that back online, and really part of the coaching and mentoring I've done with you is when you're like, well, what should I do? I'm like, well, what do you feel like you should do? Not what do you think you should do? What do you feel like you should do? What's a yes for you? What's a no for you? Like, what's an I don't know for you? And that was a pivotal moment because you were like, I'm driving. I'm not asking Lee or a coach or like looking to someone externally outside of myself and going, what do I think I should do? Now, here's the thing. If you've never gone where you're trying to go and you don't have a map, hear me, I am not telling you to not ask for directions, okay? Like,
Oh,
I'm
no.
not
Well,
saying you just follow your
right.
gut and go, oh, yeah, we'll just like use our nose and see where we end up. That's not what I'm saying. Once you've developed a plan and you've figured out how you want to journey somewhere, you get to drive the car. And so consistently stopping and pulling over and calling your mentor and being like, what do I do next? Right. And I see a lot of people have trauma around this because if you've been taught that you don't make good decisions around money, then you are probably either completely abdicating your role with it and just like pretending it doesn't exist and you don't know what's going on with your accounts. You don't know how much you're making. You don't know what's going on. Or you're giving it to someone else and going, here, you just manage it. Here, you just take care of it. You just tell me what to do. You tell me the decisions to make. And there's no ownership or accountability around, okay, this is how I want to approach my money. And by the way, if you're feeling called out in around that, I am speaking about myself just a few short years ago. You know, the amount of work I've done around money and really going, look, you can own that managing money is a zone of mediocrity for you. And you can be kind to yourself about it. And you can find good mentors and people who can come in and handle those things that you trust. And you can trust your gut to find those people. But at the end of the day, it's your money.
Exactly. Well, and that's how I work with my clients, right? So I'm a CFO/wealth coach, and I had a client who said part of their homework is they have to go and when we build the money roadmap that I build for them, they have to go and get their list their expenses. And then when to get their one-off expenses to kind of get see what their one-off expenses are, I have them do what I call a deep dive. They have to go in, pull the last 3 months, highlight them in these different categories. And this one particular client who I let out the contract because we weren't a fit, she wanted me to build the roadmap. She wanted someone else to get the expenses and list it and do all of it. She didn't want to look at it. And that's not how I work because when you're doing it with me and you're looking at it, you start recognizing and you start seeing, oh crap, I spent how much at Starbucks? Or, oh, wow, how much did we spend in office supplies or whatever? Or, oh, we're not spending nearly as much as I thought we were.
Yeah.
Again, you become aware. And when you have everyone else doing it, you're not. And so even as a CFO, when I do the transfers for some of my clients, they get an email with what I've done. When we do a monthly and when we do our 2 meetings in the month, we're still talking about what that looks like for them. And we're making sure that the savings accounts, personal or business, are built for them and they're still involved. They still have to be thoroughly involved. I may look at it and do the transfers for them. And I remind them they are still the CEO of their business. This is their money. They're just having someone they trust help them navigate because it causes them some stress and overwhelm. And they're able to work through that because they have someone they can trust helping them as they drive.
Yeah. Yeah. And that honestly, if you're like how I was, where you're making a lot of money and that's not the issue. You're making a lot of money and you don't know what's going on because there is a fear around being more aware, because underneath of that, there's some beliefs. There's worry that your beliefs around yourself are going to be confirmed. You have a belief that you're bad with money, or you don't manage it well, or it burns a hole in your pocket, or whatever that is. Like, that's when you hire someone like Lisa, because it's okay. Not only can I help you with the strategy and the understanding the piece, but like the coaching part's there to help you if you start to feel wobbly around the awareness. If you start to feel like, oh gosh, like Lisa, I'm having a hard time looking at these numbers, right? Yeah, it's you are allowed to feel dysregulated as you go through this process. That's the whole point of working with somebody who understands this, because what they're going to do is go,
Who's
look,
been there?
yeah, like I get it. And also, let's help you feel you don't do you want to feel differently? If this is the way that you always want to feel in relationship with money, cool. If not, we can shift that.
Right.
We can shift that. And
Yeah.
so,
I mean, it's kind of like what you said with me too. You like, do you want to keep feeling this way? Do you want to, keep doing? No. Okay. Well, then let's work through this and let's
yeah,
get it to where you're back on track.
yeah,
Excuse me. And I just think that's really important. What's one, and this will be our last thing. What's one tip for someone who's thinking, oh my gosh, maybe there is something there.
yeah,
Kind of like what I did. And
yeah,
I was in denial for a while, okay? I kept looking at her like she was crazy. She's used to it, I promise. But if you have someone who says, maybe there's what's one tip, like a step they
yeah.
can do to move forward?
Here is something I want to invite you to consider, okay? Like, this is a curiosity experiment that I think if you do it will make whatever your next step is clearer. Is if you were someone who really like there's a conversation between Theo Vaughn and Jordan Peterson that I think it's one of the most profound things, and it really helped me around this, like being a best friend to myself and learning how to be in a good relationship with money. And I'm not going to get it like exact, but it's, what would it look like if you were someone who was pleased when you succeeded? Like, what would it look like if you were someone you felt pleased when you got what you wanted or got what you desired? Because I think in that curiosity experiment, when I did this, on the surface level, I was like, well, of course I would be pleased if I got what I wanted. But then I sat with it and I went, okay, well, are there any parts of me that wouldn't be pleased if I got what I wanted with money? Are there any parts of me that wouldn't be pleased if I got to operate from this place of like sufficiency and abundance and know that there's always enough money? Are there parts of me that wouldn't feel good or comfortable or right around that? And there were parts that were like, no, we don't want that. And so there was so much knowledge underneath of that, of like, oh, here are the places. Here are the places that I'm disconnected from myself, from others, from the world, from money, that inform me where the work gets to be done. And that can lead me towards the mentor, the coach, the book, the team member, the thing that can help me figure out what my map is. And by the way, like, a shameless plug, Lisa's a really good person for that, because she literally helps you create a roadmap. So, sorry, not sorry. If you look at that and go, oh, there's some areas I want to work on, or there's some places that, yeah, I want to be pleased with myself and I'm not, then that's when you go, okay, I probably get to work with somebody who knows how to help people get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why, even as a wealth coach and a CFO, I have two coaches, and my two
Yeah.
coaches help me. Yes, I'm driving, and I don't have to stop, and pull over and call them and ask them, okay, what should I do? And they're there to help, one, remind me of this, and two, help navigate me to get to the new level, because the level I'm going to, I have not been there.
Yeah.
Right. And the deeper level that I'm digging into, and as my other coach calls it, the rebirthing, which you
Yeah.
loved when I said that rebirthing, I've never done that.
Mhm.
And I made a point to say that the two coaches I have are exactly who I need for at least a while to help me do the strategy and help me get to where I'm wanting to go. And that's saying something, because, yes, I'm a wealth coach. So I work on that money mindset, and I have coaches who help me,
Mhm.
because as I'm finding, as we go deeper and as we up level, there's deeper levels of that work that we need to do, which is one of the reasons why I've started doing some of the embodiment, and you
Yeah.
were teaching me the somatic. And when my accountability coach told me about the embodiment and just listening to music and dancing, I'm like, huh? Rolling my
Right.
eyes again. And she laughs at me. She goes, just try it. I was like, hey, this feels weird. She goes, it feels weird, then you're doing it right. I'm like,
Right.
okay.
Yeah.
And so before we close, I would like you to tell them about your free offer.
Yeah.
It's a quick start guide. Would you tell them about that, please?
Yeah. So, one of the things that we share across the board that we've been told is one of the most helpful tools for people who are learning how to regulate their nervous systems for the first time is our 10-second protocol. And so the 10-second protocol is a way to get like feel your feelings and bring your nervous system back into regulation without like falling apart in a puddle on the floor. So I
I
use
used to do that.
yeah, and what there's nothing wrong with that. It's just sometimes you only have 10 seconds and like
Well,
that's not
and a lot of times you get stuck in that puddle.
yes, yes. And so the 10-second protocol is it's actually something that I used to use in my former career as a nurse practitioner. I worked in critical care, and so before I would go into an emergent or life-threatening situation, I would like run to the room, I would pause, and I would do this exercise, and it helped me get centered and get my nervous system back into a calmer, clearer state so I could go in and make more intentional decisions instead of being in that like panicked or overwhelmed place. So, I walk you through that in the video. You do not have to even put your email in to get it. We really are like, look, if you want the tool, we love that. And then if you want to be connected with us further, you can do that. But like, um, it's we've had tens of thousands of people use it at this point, and they tell us it's super helpful. So, and I still use it. I use it with my kids. I use it at work. I use it all the time. It's very helpful.
I didn't realize it, but I've been using it with my girls too.
Yeah.
So, and I haven't actually listened to the video, but I'm going to actually go get the video, so that I can even do it more. But I didn't realize that I was actually, until you said something. You know what? I'm doing that actually with my girls,
Yep.
especially my oldest, because she's autistic, and she has that anxiety disorder, a generalized anxiety disorder, and so because of that, sometimes she can get stuck in that place. Um,
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on my show. And for my sassy listener, what I'm inviting you to take from this is that sometimes there may be something deeper, sometimes there's not. And if there is, it's okay. Work through it,
Mhm.
figure it out, and get help if for wherever it is, and be able to see if you are stuck in that puddle or you're on the side of the road, and you know what? I need to get back in the car.
Yeah.
I invite you to get back in the car. Money is energy. Money is a tool. It is, and in order to you have that good energy, and to change it, you have to be able to change the relationship with it and have an intimate relationship with it and not a transactional relationship. And what we don't realize is a lot of times we say, oh, I love money. And then we curl up and get aggravated whenever we pay a bill. And as one mentor a long time ago looked at me and said, do you really?
Yeah.
Are you having an intimate relationship and thanking money for paying that bill with you curling up your nose and scrunching your eyes every time you have to pay one? And so I just invite you just to, again, I tell everybody all the time, you don't have to be honest with me, okay? You don't have to be honest with anyone else. You need to be honest with yourself and just recognize some of the things. So the next time you pay your bill, the next time you pump gas, how are you reacting to spending that money? You know, I even caught myself doing it recently at the grocery store, and I had to stop myself because I was like, because I was getting aggravated at the prices, and it immediately was shifting back this way, and I had to come back and go, no.
Yeah.
And so I just invite you to do that. Dr. Lee, I love you. You know I love you. I am so tickled that you came on, and I hope we can have you on again. And thank you, everybody. And until next time, my sassy friend, bye.
Bye, y'all.
Thanks for joining us this week on Cash and Sass. Check us out on social media and on our website at www.thesassywealthcoach.com, where you can download my free Money Story Start Guide. The website again is www.thesassywealthcoach.com. And as always, subscribe to the show to catch every new episode and leave us a review so we can continue to bring you fresh content. And remember, yes, it is possible to have sassy and sexy money. See you next week.